Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Lon McRae, and we're here with John McRae,
Yay!
my nephew.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody says you're my
I hear son. I hear brother. I hear brother the most.
Yeah, I hear
the
brother.
That's a compliment to you.
It is a compliment. Is that a compliment to you?
No, no, it's not. It makes me feel older. I do have the gray in the beard like you do.
Yeah, not as much.
But no, it's fun. I mean, geez, we got a quarter of the same genes, right?
Well, that's
Half.
true. So I'm 12 years older than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, crazy.
Yeah, we got a lot of stories, and we were talking. We haven't talked about
but in reality, it's more like brothers.
Yeah. I mean, we've been Lon and I go way back. Like when I was, excuse me, when I was 20-ish, we really started hunting together.
Yeah.
And every fall it was.
Do you remember the first thing we really hunted together?
Yeah, I do. Do you?
I'm thinking it was elk.
Nope. It's something when I say it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. Earlier.
It was earlier than that elk hunt?
I'll give you a clue. My brothers had a brother came and they drove you nuts.
You had a brother.
It was Travis.
Oh, it was a deer hunt.
Nope.
Oh. What was it?
Turkey. Remember that turkey hunt we went on?
Oh, I do remember that.
I think I was 19, 20. I was in college.
Oh, he drove me crazy. Oh, yeah. How old was he?
Probably he was a teenager. Then. He was that 15-year-old.
Oh, my gosh. It was completely drove me nuts. Alex was there, my son. Do you remember? Okay, so we got some turkeys. Do you remember that we tried to cook them? Do you remember what they tasted like?
Fish.
It was awful.
Yeah.
It tasted literally like fish.
Yeah. So I shot a turkey. I think you shot a turkey.
I shot a turkey.
Yeah, we shot 2 turkeys. Literally my first turkey. I haven't shot a turkey since. We haven't really gone hunting for them. And we had this great idea to pit barbecue them in the mountains. Remember that?
Oh, I do. Yeah. And we dug a pit. We did it exactly right. We pulled it out, and I mean, we cooked it perfectly. The meat fell off the bone. We tried it, and it was like
garbage.
This is awful. It literally tasted like fish. And I remember the comment, "Oh my gosh, it's so much cheaper if we just went and got a butterball, and how much better it would taste." And so from that point on, I was like, why am I going turkey hunting? This makes no sense.
You don't do it for the meat. I mean, a turkey tag in Idaho is what, $30?
Yeah, but
it's state. It's the experience. But $30 for a tag. You got a $700 shotgun. I mean, the shell to shoot, it's not cheap. Let's call that $1. And then you got to get a tank of gas. You got to drive up to the mountains. You got to spend a weekend. It's not about the meat.
It's never about, it's a spring hunt before you really get into hunting. I do understand why. And I have been on turkey hunts in Arizona. Now that turkey was fantastic.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not sure what the difference is.
Maybe it was just the way we cooked it or something.
No, I think it's the sage. I think
it was in the sagebrush.
I think sage ruins wild game meat. Deer in Idaho compared to deer in Arizona. Deer in Arizona is definitely better. Whereas the elk is fantastic. They're not eating sage.
No, they're eating alfalfa. At least the elk we kill. They're going down to private land.
And we like the fattened on alfalfa. Yeah, that's the ones we like.
So I'll tell you an elk story. So we were raised hunters. I mean, when I was a kid, I was very poor, and literally elk meat was what we ate on all year. And my dad was a freak about it, and we did not waste any ounce of that animal. We bring the carcass back. The bones got chopped up into dog food, and we put them in the freezer. You remember doing that?
Oh yeah, your dad was probably one of the best hunters. I mean, he shot a deer every year since he was age of 12 until, what is he, like 95 now?
Yeah, something like that.
So, but he never had missed a deer all those years, and elk was pretty much the same. I mean, he was a phenomenal hunter. And my brother Ken, your dad, is the type of hunter that he was taught to, when you shoot an elk, you shoot it to where you do not waste any of the meat.
Right.
And so he got into the habit of learning to shoot everything in the neck, right in the neck or the head. I mean, it's the craziest thing. In fact, I laugh because was it 2 years ago? We went on a moose hunt with him.
That was last year.
Was that last year?
Wasn't it last year?
No, it was 2 years ago.
No, it was last year.
Was it last year? Boy, that was fun. Anyways, he got drawn for a hunt in Idaho, and it's a once in a lifetime hunt. And this is Ken. He's like, I don't care how big it is. I don't care. I don't care. I'm like, Ken, this is a once in a lifetime hunt. And he goes, it doesn't matter. I don't care how big it is. I want to be able to shoot. And I'm like, Ken, we get a once in a lifetime. We find literally the smallest bull moose that you can find that's legal. And he's like, I want to shoot. I want to shoot. I want to shoot. I'm like, Ken, we're day one.
I know, and you and I are like, do not shoot that moose. Like there are so much bigger moose. He's like, I don't care. I want to shoot it. I mean, he just has this. Fever. We talked him not to shoot it.
Yeah, we didn't shoot that one. The very next day, we come across, a little bit bigger one, and he was dying, and he's like, just let him. We said, fine, shoot it. As soon as we said, I think either you or I said, go ahead and shoot. He shoots, hits it right in the neck, and he drops it, kills it, and the hunt's over.
Easiest pack out ever.
Yeah, it was really
good
easy.
meat too.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that was kind of fun.
I didn't tell you this, but when he took it to the Fish and Game to get it checked, because you have to get it checked, they kind of gave him a hard time for shooting such a little moose.
Oh, they did?
They did. And they're like, is this even legal? Because it has to be 6 inches long. It's barely 6 inches, But it was legal. He took his photos. He could care. And you go ask him today, he's like, I could care less.
Yeah. So points didn't ever matter. And it was like whether it was a 4-point, a 5-point, or a spike. If it's a legal animal, for him, that's it. I mean, he wanted to get something big, but for him, and he's killed big deer and big elk. That's not what was important to him.
Meat.
It was. Yeah.
Meat.
Anyways.
Yeah, but going back to when I was a kid, I mean, all we did was eat venison. I mean, pheasants off the farm that we would go hunt, ducks, geese, we ate those all year round. Elk, there was always 3 or 4 elk that we would process every year, and that's what we ate. And to the point where we got sick of it. And we're like, nah, we're not eating this game. So when you and I started hunting, what did we do with our elk that we killed?
Oh, we
gave them away.
Gave it away because we didn't actually like it, because I got to a point where I really liked beef. I mean, it tasted better. And then we got to a point where it was, you know what? We have so much wild meat, and we're just giving it away.
We're spending all this money to harvest this. We're giving it away. It went to people that needed it and stuff like that.
But then, okay, so tell people, what did we do that finally got it to a point where we went, oh my gosh, we've been missing out?
Yeah, we took it. So when you process an animal, a lot of hunters will process their animals themselves. And I think that's a mistake. I mean, you could do it well, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, we've done it.
And we've done it, and it's fine. But if you don't get you got to be really vigilant. You got to get that off the mountain, take really good care of it, keep it cold, get it processed in a time.
Okay, well,
what we did that was magical was you take the whole animal, good parts and bad parts, and you grind it up into burger, and then you add a little bit of bacon fat. And if you do that, holy smokes, do you have grade A, better than any meat you can buy in the grocery store. And I've tried. You can't do it.
Yeah. So as a patient of ours that said, try bacon, we found a processor which was fantastic. We said, hey, would you be willing to do? No, he told us.
No, it was the processor that
the processors told us. And he said, bacon ends.
Bacon ends.
One year we had so much wild game, he had to buy all of Walmart's bacon ends to be able to do our wild game. And that's pretty much, and
I think it doubled the cost of the meat.
Yeah.
I mean, about like $500 worth of fat.
But here's the kicker. We had tried burger before and our wives didn't like it. And then
hated it.
We got to tell the story about your.
I got to tell the worst story ever. I almost got divorced over this, by the way. So my wife grew up in northern Idaho and family of hunters, and she ate tacos once. That was venison, deer, if I remember the story correctly. And ever since that time, she hated deer and she refused to eat venison. So we finally figured out the secret sauce to this meat, and we realized how good it is. Well, my wife knows that it's elk. She's not going to eat it. And so I did a little naughty thing. And she loves buffalo meat. I went and I told the butcher, hey, can you just put buffalo on all these? And he's like, yeah, I'll label it any way you want. So he put buffalo on all of it. I took it home and I said, honey, great news. I traded elk for buffalo meat. She's like, oh, that's wonderful. She said, she's like,
You
this
said
is
2 to 1.
it was a
what
2
you
to
said.
1, right? I go, yeah, 2 pounds of this for 1 pound of that. And she's like, oh, that's fantastic. Let's try it. She says, like, this is wonderful. And I'm like, great. She loves it. And I should have told her right then, but I didn't. And that lie went on for 5 years.
She thought she was eating buffalo for 5 years.
5 years. And I made another mistake and I told everybody else about it because I thought it was funny, except for her. So she became kind of the butt of a joke that everybody knew about. And then one day we were in Albertson's parking lot, and I said, honey, I got to tell you something. She's like, oh no. Like, she's thinking I'm going to say we have an affair or something like that. And I go, that meat's not buffalo. It's been elk this whole time. And I thought I was going to get divorced. I thought, and she wasn't so mad about the lie, but that everybody was in on it but her.
That was the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even my wife, the first year, she knew it was elk, and she didn't want to try it because we had tried elk so many times. She tries it and went, okay, this is fantastic. So for us, this is what we've done with all of our elk, moose, everything, is we take the entire thing, we make burger, and it's the best burger, and we don't have to buy any burger. And in fact, we have employees that now they absolutely love it. It is the best burger. In fact, so if you think about burger, we're taking 90% of it's a 90-10%, right?
Yep.
But
90 burger, 10% fat.
But the nice thing, 10% bacon.
Excuse me, bacon.
Which is the bacon is not all fat.
No.
So there's
so it's like probably like 7%, 5% fat somewhere.
So so it's probably like a 50-50. Now you've got 95% lean meat.
It tastes so good.
And it tastes good. The only thing you have to do is you have to cook it a little bit more because of the bacon.
Yeah. Yeah. But it doesn't hold a patty as well as like beef. But beef is like, I mean, you buy 80-20 beef, it's like 20% fat. It's going to hold together well. So you have to add like an egg to it if you want to make a patty or something like that. But even by itself, it's just delicious.
Yeah, it really is. But yeah, we have a lot of hunting stories. We were just talking as we were coming here. For 18 years during the summer, we have went on pack trips.
Yeah.
Boy, we've got a lot of stories with that.
Horseback trips. Yeah, we've been to.
What was the first year?
First year that I went on one, we did the Sawtooths. We went from Grand Jean to Redfish Lake to.
Do you remember why we did it? Why did we start?
Grandpa.
My dad.
Yeah. He always wanted to do a trip, right?
He had asked me. He knew I had horses. He grew up with horses. He had horses on the farm, and he said, before I die, I would like to be able to go on a pack trip. And I was like, what do you mean by pack trip? And he was like, I want to get on a horse and I just want to go over the mountains and I want to go from spot to spot. I've never done that. And so it was you, me,
one of your
Austin, and my dad.
Mm-hmm. That was it.
We went up to the Sawtooth. We did 70 miles, 60 miles.
Like yeah, it was a long way.
It was a long trip. Do you remember how we did food on that first one?
I do. We each we devoted one of our saddlebags. So a horse has 2 saddlebags on the back of you, and everybody was responsible for one meal or one day.
Yeah.
And you had to put all your food in that saddlebag. I can't believe I remember this. I did chili and tortillas.
Okay, I remember that. And I remember thinking how great that was.
It was actually pretty good. And then you did some Thai food.
We did Indian food.
Yeah. And I remember how good that was.
It was really
good. And Grandpa did like sardines or some stupid crap. Right?
Yeah.
He loved his sardines or tomato sandwiches. I don't remember.
We didn't eat great.
No, we didn't. But it was still fun. We slept under the stars. I think it rained on us one day.
Yeah, every night, every day we would move, and we would just put a tarp out, and then if it rained, we took a tarp and just threw it over the top of us. That's how we slept every night.
Beautiful country. Like, people don't realize how beautiful America is until you get out and hike into it.
We've been places that I would say 99.999% of the population will never see.
Yeah. What's funny about our trips is Lon likes to go big. We don't like to do small things. We want to do something as hard as possible because suffering makes memories, right? And I think the next year we did the Wind Rivers, and we didn't know what we were doing. Wind Rivers is at the trail at one point was at over 11,000 feet, and we went 4th of July weekend. Well, guess what?
It was too early.
There's still a lot of snow at 11,000 feet 4th of July weekend, and we get to a point with the horses where we have to go over this glacier, and we know if we go over this glacier, we can't turn around, and it was getting sketchy. Remember that?
I do remember. That wasn't just one of them.
Oh, no. That was the first one. We're like, if we go down this hill, the horses will not make it back up. Do we want to turn around? And I was like, turn around. And you were like, no, let's keep going. I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. I had a broken foot. You remember that?
Oh,
I broke my
yeah.
toe right beforehand.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, we go, and then it was just crossing glaciers. And I remember Grandpa, I mean, he was 70 at the time
Yeah.
ish.
No, he was 70. Yeah.
Right in there, you know,
Mhm.
69, 72, somewhere in there. And there was a part where we had to cross a glacier field, and the river ran under the glacier.
I remember that.
And we had to cross the snow bridge to get to the other side of the creek over a glacier with a river running underneath it.
Yeah. And
20 feet of snow. And we were hoping that our 2,000 pounds of gear and horses and all that stuff would make it across that.
yeah, you got to think of this glacier as probably 75 feet deep of snow.
Mhm.
And so we got to walk across it. And what you hope is that you do not hit a soft spot and that you fall through, and there's no saving you.
You're dead.
You're dead. There's
Well,
none.
you might make it, but the horse isn't going to make it.
And so do you remember I took my horse and I said, okay, you guys just follow every step that I do, just follow. And if something happens to me, just save me. And so I remember like walking really, and I'm taking my pole and I'm poking it like I'd seen in like documentaries and stuff, trying to figure it out. And I end up going and making it. And then I watched you and you followed every step. And then I see my Alex was on that one and he follows it every step. And then I see my dad and he doesn't follow in any of the steps. He's all over the place. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you guys made it. I'll be fine. And he was fine. And okay, that trip was pretty interesting. So this is the first day. We are in wild country that we shouldn't be in. We are 20 miles from the nearest road. There is literally no one around. We are above the tree lines. We're in Alpine.
Mhm.
Where we camped, you could hear water rushing under the ground.
Yep.
You remember this? And this is where we set up camp. We set up the horses and we tied them to some brush. And then all of a sudden that night it starts. It's probably the worst lightning storm I've ever seen. I remember seeing.
I was terrified.
I remember seeing lightning hit the ground around us. And I was, yeah.
And if you've ever been that close to lightning, what happens? The flash and the bang happen simultaneously.
Exact same time.
Same time as flash bang, flash bang, flash
and then,
bang,
and
the pouring rain.
And you know it's bad, and it's pouring rain, yes, but you knew it was really bad because you felt the static electricity. I could feel it, and it was like, and
we have carbon tent poles.
Yes.
Conductors. There's very few trees around us. We're above the tree line.
And you and my dad are in a tent, and I'm with my son Alex, and I start putting on my clothes, and it's, I don't know, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. It's pouring rain. And I mean, it's just rain and rain and rain. And then I remember hearing my dad go, "What are you doing, Lon?" Because he knew I was getting up. And I go, "I'm going to go get the horses." Do you remember what his response was?
Well, what good's that going to do?
No, he goes, "What are you going to do when you get them?"
Yeah.
He literally goes, "What are you going to do when you get them?" And so I thought about it. And I'm like, comfort them? And I was like, and then I realized, yeah, there's nothing I'm going to do. And so
you're just going to get wet.
So I just got back in my sleeping bag, got up in the morning.
They were fine.
No, do you remember the horses were gone? The horses,
they got loose.
They got loose, but remember, there was no place for them to go.
Yeah. They were kind of snowed in.
They had a glacier on one side. There was no place for them to go.
On the other.
And it was like, we left them there all day and just let them graze. And then we got up the next morning. And what did we do?
Catch a ton of fish.
That was the best fishing I've ever had.
Yeah, there's never been a better time. I mean,
the hatch.
They had a hatch, and they were spawning because we were so early. Like the lakes literally unfroze, and we were between two cutthroat trout lakes, and they were spawning, and they could only get to the glaciers, which were snowed over, and they were kind of stopped behind these glaciers, and there was just a big pool of hundreds of fish. And I remember catching. It didn't matter what kind of fly you put on, you caught them. I had this fly, and it just got rattier and rattier and rattier to the point where it was a hook. and I still caught fish on it on a bald hook.
I remember having a sinker and a dry fly, and I caught two fish
Yeah,
at the
I
exact
did that.
same time. And I'd pull it in and I'd have two fish. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is
never again.
no, that was a magical moment.
And then Grandpa comes up and he's like got this 24-inch cut that he pulled out of this stream. And the stream's not wider than this room. I mean, what, 20 feet across?
On a spinner
On a
with
spinner.
a 3-foot pole. 3-foot pole that he catches this 20 something.
that was made in 1934.
Okay, do you remember? Okay, so I think we're cooking that fish.
Did we cook fish? Yeah, we cooked some fish.
I think we cooked some fish for lunch. We were eating lunch, and do you remember who came by?
Oh yeah, the through hiker.
So there was this.
He came by when we were having steaks.
Oh, is that what
I'm
it was?
going to correct you on that one. Yeah, because we had big old 1.5-inch ribeyes that were on the grill, and he came up and was salivating and he's like, "Yeah, I haven't seen a person like a week. I'm doing 150 miles through the winds."
No, so he was starting in.
No, he started at the bottom of Wyoming. It was
Wyoming.
At the top, right?
He was a school teacher.
That's right.
And he was starting at the bottom of Wyoming, was going to end at the very northern tip of Wyoming, and he was going all through the mountains. And do you remember he thought he could fish his entire way, and so as he was coming through, he's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to catch. I thought I could catch fish." He was out of hooks, and he had no hooks
Do you
left.
remember what he did?
Yeah, he took a paper clip.
Safety pin.
Oh, it was a safety pin.
Yeah, he took a safety pin and made like a lure off of it. He said he caught a few fish on it, but it was this big gaudy thing.
But he wasn't very successful.
No.
And so we had tons of lures.
Yeah, Lon literally reaches in, grabs a bundle of them. I don't know, it's like 20 of them, and he goes, "Oh, here you go." And I'm like, "That's like $50 worth of spinners."
Yeah.
Yeah, he needs it.
It was
like, go fish.
It's the karma thing.
We didn't offer him any of our steak. I still feel bad about that.
Yeah, we gave him granola bars. I remember that.
Oh yeah, we did.
And so he ended up we ended up actually feeding the dude. But yeah, I wasn't giving him any of my steak.
That steak was so good. It was a lot of effort to get that in there.
We've had some crazy meals. We've had steak, cherry pie. We've had lobster.
Yeah, we did lobster, shrimp a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
When a horse carries your food, you're gonna eat well.
We have, and we do.
We never. I mean, that first year we kind of suffered because we went light, but after that, it's coolers, and you strap a few coolers on a horse and go in. But
okay,
we've been to the Wind Rivers, we've been to Bob Marshall, we've been in the most remote spot in the lower 48, which is outside of Yellowstone, 22 miles as the crows flies to the nearest road. Second most remote spot in the lower 48, which is in the Bob Marshall, which is near the China Wall, which is quite the geological feature. If you ever want to go for a beautiful hike, it's about a 20-mile wall that's 400 or 500 feet tall.
Yeah, but the Bob Marshall's went way downhill.
Yeah, they had a fire to go through there, so we've been there 3 times now. But since the last burn, I don't want to go back.
Yeah, it's just too hot.
Yeah, there's no shade anymore.
That was part of the problem. But going back to the first pack trip that we went on, it was near the end of our trip. One of the things is that we're all gun nuts. I mean, and it's so we pack heavy. We're in dangerous country. I mean, we have been in heavy bear country. We've seen lots of grizzly bears. We've had encounters with grizzlies, and so we always have bear spray, but we always are packing. And we come across a cairn of I'm just going to call it a cairn of it was a forest ranger.
Yeah, that was in the Sawtooth. Yeah.
In the Sawtooth. And we come by, you had the best answer ever to a question that she was trying to be derogatory towards us. I was in the lead. I had a mule behind me. She stops us. She wants to talk to us. And she asks a question. And the question was, and she looks at us and we're all packing. And we all have firearms. And she says, "Why do you think it's necessary to have guns in the backcountry?" And then John gives the perfect answer. What was your answer?
I don't remember it verbatim, but it was something along the line, "Isn't it my constitutional right?"
You literally said to her, "Because it's my constitutional right."
Yeah, shut her up.
She didn't say one word. she kind of just went and then just walked past us.
Let's back the story up a little bit. Why was she coming up the trail? Because we were shooting guns at a lake we weren't supposed to. And so somebody had complained about it, and they hiked out and said, "Oh, there's guys up at this lake shooting guns," and it was probably us. And she was looking at.
Was that?
I think it was that time. I don't know.
I don't know if that was the case.
But anyways, yeah, she had that. That's the first Karen we ran into. Let me tell you about Nut Karen number 2. We decide to go. We've been in Yellowstone now.
Oh, you really want to tell this?
100%.
Oh.
Yeah, we're way past statute of limitations.
Okay, all right.
Like, nobody's gonna do this.
Oh, this is during the Obama administration.
Yeah, this is the second time we go into Yellowstone, and when you take animals into Yellowstone, you have to get Coggins testing and permits, and I mean it's bureaucracy. So we get all the testing done. You have to reserve your campsites, and when we say reserve these campsites, you're in the middle.
Oh no, you're not talking about. You're not talking about Karen.
About Karen.
You're talking about Annie Oakley.
She was also a Karen.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyways, so we get permits. Well, one of the things you have to do for these permits is you have to sit down with the ranger, and they have to go over backcountry laws with you and make sure you're safe and all this kind of stuff, and make sure you're equipped to do what you want to do. And you have this little interview. It's like a 5-minute interview. And so we watch the videos on how to keep your bears, how to be bear safe, and, how to camp at the designated spots. I mean, it's like this 30-minute process, and Lon and I are sitting there watching these videos and stuff. And then the ranger comes in, and she has to give her approval. And she walks in with this attitude like, "I'm not approving you." We could just read it on her.
Oh, it was so. Now you got to picture this. We don't look like cowboys at all. We're in shorts. We're in shorts, like pocket shorts and stuff, and t-shirts because it was hot. It was a little bit hot. We're going into a place called the Pelican Valley.
Mirror Plateau.
Through Pelican Valley. Now, Mirror Plateau is known for heavy grizzly.
Yep.
And
by the way, they don't let people in there. You have to draw a permit to go in there, and they only let people spend the night 15 nights of the year from July 15th to August 15th, and you have the luxury of getting one of these nights. And so we pulled a permit, and luckily, and we are the only ones allowed on this plateau, and this plateau's 100,000 acres.
Yeah, and she says, I remember she goes, "Why would anyone want to go back into the Mirror Flats?" She goes, don't you realize this is heavy grizzly bear country? And we
trailless.
Yeah, there's no trails, and why would you want to go back there? And we went, because no one's back there. We want to get away from everything. We want to feel the wild, and this is the whole reason we're going. And so we're literally at a table, kind of like this, and we're both
bulletproof vest, 45 cal on her hip,
huge gun. I mean, she's got clips.
She's a law enforcement officer,
but I mean, she's got more stuff on her belt, like she was ready for war. And so she is just drilling us left and right. And
how are you going to tie your horses up?
Oh, she does say, "How are you going to tie your horses up?" And
what
then
did she say?
And then I said, "Well, just like we always do, we're gonna tie them to trees, and if that's a problem, then we'll do a high line. A high line is where you tie between two trees, and then you tie to the high line. The problem is with a high line, we have seen it. We've been in the backcountry, especially with guides that do high lines, and the high line breaks, and then all your horses are gone. And so what we do is we actually take and we tie them individually to each individual tree. Yeah, if one or two gets loose, that's not a big deal. And it's happened in the middle of the night because they're not going to leave the rest of the herd. So we don't do that. And she about came unglued about tying to a tree. Now, this is 100,000 acres. I don't know what it is. It's just a huge area. And she says, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "Why?" And she goes, "You'll hurt the vegetation under their hooves."
And she goes, "These trees are a precious resource, and we cannot damage them. We can't have one grain of bark come off those trees." And the vegetation, and she went on this like 5-minute rant about damaging the thing. And I said, "Okay, that's fine. We won't do that."
Yeah. And then she looks at us in a quizzical way and says, "Are you taking firearms?"
And this is the first year that they allowed firearms in the park.
yeah, because they
They were against the law until this year.
was it the Trump era? No,
No, it was Obama.
yeah,
They
I think
passed-
no, I think he was forced to pass that.
Mhm. Congress
He
passed the law.
forced it.
He had to sign it.
Anyways, and so we went, yeah, we're taking firearms and we want to be safe. And then she says something that I about came out of my chair on. She looks at us and she goes, I just want to let you know, it is legal for you to take firearms into the backcountry, but you cannot discharge your firearm. And if you do, then that's a federal offense. So the only thing you can do is if a grizzly bear attacks you is with a firearm is you can poke it in the eye with your gun.
Literally said that.
Poke it in the eye. That's all that you can do. And I just about came.
Oh, I could see it on his face. He was just about ready.
Yeah. And I was like, because I was going to ask her. I was going to ask her, well, then why do you have a gun on your hip? And she would have said, because it's for the people that potentially could be endanger others. And I would go, well, then you have to live by the same law. You can't discharge either. And so if you do, then the only thing you can do is poke a person in the eye. Anyways, so as I'm about ready to come out of my chair, I feel this hand on my leg squeeze my thigh, and it's John under the table telling me to just shut up,
Smile and nod,
and to just live with it.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
go, oh, that's great. Okay, yeah, no, okay, maybe we won't bring them.
and
Now what,
yeah,
Karen?
and so she goes. Basically, she had to sign our permit. We got our permit. We went
With
the
guns.
next morning. We all were packing.
Mhm.
We had
How many grizzly bears did we see that day?
well, we had Nick with us, my youngest son,
Tim,
and we had Tim Gray,
Steven,
me, and you.
Mhm.
So there was 5 of us, and there was a group just in behind us of they were like teenagers. Remember that?
Mhm.
Anyways, we get up to the Pelican Valley,
and if you want a great day hike, go to the Pelican Valley.
Oh my gosh! Early
First
in the
thing
morning.
in the morning, when the mist is coming off the river, you'll see all the wildlife.
We get up
it
on
was a
this
scene that we will never see again.
This knoll, it's a tiny little knoll, and then we look out, and I'm not just saying it was. You felt wild,
Mhm.
but this is only 5 miles from the trail. From the
I've got goosebumps thinking about it.
it was pretty impressive. We looked down at the river. 150 yards down the river is this huge grizzly bear boar, and he's sitting there just kind of eating, doing his
Fish
thing.
or something.
And we look over. What did we see?
Pack of wolves.
A pack of wolves. And what was chasing the pack of wolves?
Another grizzly bear.
A grizzly was chasing a pack of wolves. Now, I have this on video.
Mhm.
I mean, so I'm not just making this up. And then we see another grizzly just a little bit after that. I mean, it was like all of a sudden the wild just came
Mhm.
alive around us. And it was, yeah, that day.
But that wasn't the most wild thing we encountered.
No, so what was it?
Good old buffalo. So we set up camp we stopped for lunch at a geyser in the backcountry that literally nobody knows about. Like, it says geyser, nobody visits it because, again, only 15 people a year or 15 groups a year are allowed on this plateau. So we're by this geyser, we're looking at this awesome geyser, and we're eating lunch, and then all of a sudden the horses start going like something's bothering them. Like, oh, is there a bear? No, there's a buffalo coming up the trail. And we're like, okay, here comes a buffalo. So we start hooping and hollering. The buffalo looks at us like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. And
Just kept coming.
And he's going to come right through the horses.
Mm-hmm, just kept coming.
Big buffalo.
Mm-hmm. And they make a noise. Like, I'm going to try to do my best, but it's...
Yeah.
It's this guttural, deep rumble.
Yeah.
And the horses think they're going to die. Because there is this prehistoric beast coming with horns, 3 times the size of them, going...
And they're tied up.
And
all they want to do is run
out. And if they would have got loose, we would have been done.
Well, yeah. And at this time, we're probably 15 miles in.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of it, do you remember what Tim did?
No.
Tim pulls his gun.
Oh, he did?
Yes. He pulls his gun. He's pointing it at the head of the buffalo. And I'm like, Tim, do not shoot that. And then he's like, well, what if he attacks? I said, Tim, put your gun down.
We're the only ones here. They're going to figure out who shot this
I'm like,
thing.
Tim, put your gun down. Do not do it. And he's like, well, I don't know what to do. I said, let's all back up. So we back up to the horses. buffalo just kind of walks through. Thank goodness nothing happened. We end up, and then we get back on our horses. And then what did we encounter after that?
Mud.
And then it was one of the
Mud.
worst. I mean, we had to get to where we were going to go, and the rest of the
We
trip
have one spot in this 100,000 acres.
that we have to
100,000
find.
acres, like 10 miles by 10 miles. I mean, it is just endless.
We went 20 miles that day.
We did.
And we
had to find this one spot, and there's no trails.
there's
I literally printed off a satellite map. This is before like Onyx and all these fun, toys that you have nowadays. I had this aerial vision of this map where it showed the vegetation because I knew we'd have to pick our way through these meadows and stuff.
So the one thing that people don't know about John is that he is a genius when it comes to maps.
That's about it.
But you really are. He has an ability to be able to see maps, be able to see the ground, be able to see the, and he is our navigator. We couldn't do the trips without you. I'm seriously. And so he's fantastic at this. So he is always the person that's telling us, okay, this is where you go, and this is how you are able to do it. But in this getting there was times that the horses would fall into mud, clear up into their chests, and so nobody would go that way, and that happened over and over. But the scariest part wasn't the mud. It was all of a sudden you're just riding, and then there's like a ditch that the waterway had made, and you couldn't see the bottom. It literally was like 20 feet deep, and you didn't know how deep it was.
So the best way to describe it, we're on a plateau, and it's very flat up there. I mean, there's like little mounds of hills where the trees were, but in between the trees were meadows. And from the satellite imagery, it looks like it's nice, flat, grassy stuff. And probably in August, that's the way it is. But in July, when we went, the snow had just melted, and those meadows were mud, and the horses couldn't walk through it. So we'd have to ride on the edge of the meadow where the trees came down because that was the only solid land. So instead of just doing a 100-yard jaunt through a meadow, you have to do a mile around the meadow to get to the other side. And in the middle of every meadow was a drainage. And that drainage, because it's flat, had this ditch that Lon's talking about. You can see the bottom. It's this wide, a foot and a half wide.
Well, some of them were a foot, some of them were 3 feet. But we would have to jump them
with the horses.
And the horses wouldn't knew that, hey, that's really deep. I mean, they knew that there was problems, and they would have to jump them. And not all the time did they want to jump across. So you would have to get at least one of the horses to jump. Then the rest of the horses would go, all right, you made it. Then they would jump. But we had to do it over and over and over.
One slip, dead horse.
Yes.
They're not coming back. They fall in that thing, they're done.
And we're not idiots. We're not jumping on their backs. We get off, we jump, and then we're pulling the horses across. This is what we had to do over and over and over and over. It was exhausting.
It took us all day.
We eventually get to
the campsite. And by the way, you could tell people had tied horses to these trees 1,000 times. I mean, there was rings around every one of those horses. Karen didn't know what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And by the way, those 6 trees that had horse ties were one of 600 billion trees.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yeah. There's no way to be able to. Anyway. Yeah. So we get to the campsite. It was a really cool campsite. Somebody had found, I think it was deer antlers that the wolves had gotten to. They'd put it on like this stake, so you knew that other people had been there. And the best way to describe this is one of the most beautiful scenes that you could. Here is this meadow with all this grass. Literally 150 yards from where we're going to be camping is a whole herd of buffalo. We look, when we first get there, 300 yards past the buffalo is a huge grizzly, another grizzly. We find another grizzly in a different direction.
400 yards away.
And we end up seeing 3 more grizzlies that night. So in one day, we saw 6 grizzlies. There was grizzly bears all around us. There was buffalo all around us. We start setting up camp. Steven, idiot. I will just say it. He is an idiot. I mean, and so he wanted to see if he could, the buffalo are just sunning themselves. He wanted to see if he could touch a buffalo. And
remember, we're 20 miles in. There is no rescue. This is wilderness.
Yeah, and so
nobody is on this plateau but us.
And he wants us to go see how close he can get and see if he can get to a buffalo that has been in the wild Now this is in the wild,
No, this isn't like a tame Yellowstone buffalo. This is middle of nowhere buffalo.
but yeah, like wolves are.
And by the way, that buffalo that he went to visit, what happened with the grizzly bear? Walked right past it, and buffalo didn't even get up. Like, what's that grizzly bear going to do to me?
Yeah, so we watched the grizzly, and the grizzly literally went right by the same
We're
buffalo.
like, oh, it's going to kill this buffalo. No.
No, the buffalo literally didn't even lift his head for the grizzly because the grizzly, literally the buffalo was 3 times the size of the grizzly. He could care less about the stupid grizzly. Well, so Steven's going to go touch it, and I'm videotaping it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna witness, and you hear me say, he's such an idiot. I'm gonna see him get killed right now. He's gonna get gored. And how close did he get?
15 feet.
He got about 15 feet.
Yeah.
And I'm dying, thinking, okay,
like, get back here.
And then so finally he turns around, he comes back. We're setting up camp. This is the funniest. We're setting up camp, and we just put up the tent. The horses are all tied up pretty near where we were going to be.
Put an electric fence around the camp for the bears.
So we're putting up the electric fence, and then the biggest of the buffalo starts walking right towards our camp. Curious. And he starts coming right to our camp. He is now on a little trail that's going to go right through where all the horses, again, same scenario. He's going to go right through it. And I was like, okay, this is going to be disastrous. We can't have this. We didn't have time to undo the horses. And so I go and stand in this little trail between it and the horses. And so I'm just going to say it. I've got bear spray in my left hand. I have a 44 Magnum rifle in my right hand that I had bear loads for, which are, they were, 300 grain hard cast bullets that would do some damage to anything. And so I'm sitting there, and there's a buffalo 7 feet away from me, half the distance of what Steven got. And I wasn't pushing it. The buffalo was pushing it. I was just trying to get him not to go through this. And we had a standoff. And I remember thinking, okay, as I'm standing there, I don't know, does bear spray work on a buffalo? And I'm like, I'm not sure. If I spray a buffalo, is it just going to piss him off and he's going to be even worse? I didn't know. And if I shoot him, I'm in trouble. So it's like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm not going to let him harm the horses or me. And so I'm just standing there. And I remember thinking, hey, at least I've got the other 4 guys right with me. And at that point, as I think that, I turn around to look and make sure that everybody's right behind me. No, all of the other 4 are 50 feet beyond me, behind a big tree, watching me going, you're doing a good job.
So true.
It was. And then
I was videotaping, but I forgot to hit record.
He never recorded. He's videotaping the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It seemed like an hour. It was probably like 2 minutes.
That was a long time. But the buffalo was like,
not worth it.
Not worth it. Turn around and walked off into the woods.
Thank goodness.
Oh my gosh. But we had this whole plan, like, okay, if we shoot this buffalo, we'll just tie a horse to it. We'll drag it out to one of these pits.
Ditches. Yeah.
Ditches. Throw it in there. Nobody would ever know.
And they wouldn't have. I mean,
you gotta have plans for that.
That never happened.
No,
just make sure I understand.
Everything was fine.
But I do. Okay, so
we had wolves howling that night.
We had in close. Mm-hmm. They were really close.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's the most wild place in the continental United States.
I've never felt it.
Hands down. Worse. They make it to where it's wild. They limit how many people can go in there and spend the night. You have to pull a permit. We got lucky. I'd like to go back.
I would too. And you know what? I'm grateful for the national park for what they do, like Yellowstone, and they preserving that. It is, it's amazing. And honestly, I'm grateful for even Annie Oakley, because
she's got a role.
She's got a role doing what she needs to do. And
I mean, we've skipped this part. She literally told us, do not tie your horses up, hobble them, and somebody's going to stay up all night with them.
Yeah, she did tell us that.
And you just hobble them, and every 2 hours you're going to get up, and you're going to go out and make sure they're there. And if they're not, well, that's your problem.
So I'm going to get up out of our nice little bear fence that we put
with wolves howling and grizzly bears everywhere, and I'm going to go check on a horse.
And none of us are going to do that. And the horses would have I know if we would hobbled our horses, they'd be gone,
or in a pit or something stupid.
Yeah,
we tied them up.
But okay, so then we're leaving that day to go back. We had the one night in the wild,
Yep.
and then we're going to go to a different spot in Yellowstone. So
We had
anyways,
a bail on our second day because it was just too muddy. It was too hard. The next spot was further in, and we would have had to do that whole meadow thing, and we're like, we can't do it.
yeah. So we had to leave that camp spot because there could
Somebody
have been
else.
somebody else
Yeah.
that had that permit. So we decided to go ahead and leave. Well, this is on a Saturday. We are now going through the Pelican Valley again. This is a Saturday that we're going back.
And the closer we get to Pelican Valley, the closer we are to road and civilization. And we literally see nobody from 3 miles in to 20 miles in.
Yeah, there was not a person.
Not a person.
We get to Pelican Valley on the second day, and there was people everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And I remember this one group, and it was almost like they thought we were from the TV show Yellowstone before Yellowstone, because it was like they were taking pictures of us, and we
had cowboy hats on and shafts.
And we had guns. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh,
there's people from Iceland and Japan,
and
cowboy,
they're stopping us and taking pictures, and anyways, and so you kind of feel like a little bit of a celebrity. We're what, 15 feet up because we're on horses. And I remember this one group stops us, and this woman goes, and it was her whole family, and she's like, "Have you seen any wildlife?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we've seen a lot of wildlife." And she goes, "Where? And I said, "Well, just yesterday. Do you see where your 2-year-old is over there playing? We saw a grizzly bear right there." She hits her husband, who happens to have a whistle. That he didn't have bear spray, just a little whistle. And his 2-year-old is over there. And she's like, "I told you that we shouldn't be out here." And she was so mad. And she turns to us and says, "Can we walk out with you?" You remember that?
Yeah.
And I said, "Sure, you can walk out with us,
You
but
can keep up with us.
you're not going to be able to keep up." And so
they followed us for a couple hundred yards.
And then she's like,
you can't
"Okay,
keep up with a horse.
we're not going to keep up."
No, especially with a 2-year-old.
But it was
so funny.
I just remember thinking, okay, you are completely unprepared. You think that you are safe because you are in Yellowstone, which you think is like a zoo. It is not a zoo. This is wild, wild country.
Things will kill you.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
And the bears weren't the worst. It was the buffalo.
Oh my gosh. Well,
man, they could kill you.
My understanding is there's more buffalo. People die more from buffaloes than they do from the bears.
I believe it. Well, they're stupid. I mean, they look at all these big, slow animals, and you get close to them, and then all you have to do is gore you, and you're dead.
Well, it's the crazy thing is that people don't understand. You have an interaction with any animal in Yellowstone. So like the idiots that put the buffalo calf, because they found a buffalo calf, they put it in their van.
Yeah.
What did they have to do to the calf?
Killed it.
They had to kill it. They can't allow that interaction with humans. And I remember reading this one story of a guy who was photographing grizzlies, and he went to go photograph the grizzlies, and he just kept getting closer and closer and closer. And apparently he got within 15 feet of this grizzly, and the grizzly, freaking idiot, and the grizzly mauled him, killed him, and they had to kill that grizzly. Yeah. And so if there's any interactions, like especially with a grizzly to a human, it's dead.
Yeah. So you got to respect it.
You really do. And so I'm grateful for that. It's just there's so many regulations, and you're always kind of on nerve and edge
like
from going through that.
Catch you for doing something wrong, like tying a horse up to a tree.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah. Something stupid like that.
But Yellowstone's a pretty cool place. You want to hear my Yellowstone hack? We discovered this on that trip, I believe. You get up at 4 a.m. and you drive in. You get in for free. The gates are open. You don't have to pay anything, and you're there before anybody.
Okay, now wait.
The wildlife are out.
Okay, so let's make sure that people understand. We had paid for our permit the day before, so we got in early because no one was there. We got in really early.
If we didn't have our permit, you could have gotten in for free.
That's true.
Right.
That is.
But we paid for our permits the day before.
But I think that you have to put something on your decal on your car.
I don't know.
Anyways, that is a Yellowstone hack.
But anyways, you get in there, you beat everybody. And it's beautiful. The steam's coming off the rivers. The animals are all out.
Well, that's not just Yellowstone hack. That's our hack.
Well, that's just outdoors hack, right?
Well,
but Yellowstone especially, because you wait till 9 o'clock to go in there. You're an hour wait to get through the gate. And then it's bumper to bumper traffic all day long.
So when
You
we
could be done with your day at noon.
when we prepare to move in the mountains and we're in the wilderness somewhere, it doesn't matter where we're at. We get up at 4.
Mm-hmm.
We get up at 4 because it's going to take about an hour
Let's
and a
back
half.
up a little bit. We plan on getting up at 5, but this one, 4:15. Okay, we got to get going. I get impatient. He has go-itis, and it works out.
I do.
There's nothing worse than being on a horse when it's hot outside. There's nothing better than being on a horse when it's nice and cool outside.
And we see more wildlife.
See more wildlife. 100%.
And we have seen a lot of wildlife.
Mm-hmm. Elk. A lot of elk. A lot of deer.
We heard Sasquatch.
Tell the Sasquatch story. Okay, I'm getting goosebumps. This is the freakiest story you're ever going to hear.
And okay, so we are in the Bob Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
We had just went past okay, so this, I'm going to back up. It was our, like, I think our second or third day. We woke up that morning and we see, as I unzip the tent, there is 150 elk 75 yards away.
Yeah.
And they're all just kind of looking at us. And so it was a magical
The day
place.
started off at a good note.
Really awesome. As we're going through, we see the biggest grizzly bear track, I think, to this day that I've ever seen. Is massive. We see 2 female hikers, and all they had was whistles. And I thought, okay, idiots, you don't even have bear spray. I remember thinking, you think
You
this
think idiots a lot,
Yeah.
because
they kind of are. I mean, you're going to go in the backcountry and you don't even have bear spray. Again, everybody's packing. That was quite the trip too. Anyways, as we're going down the trail, we see a guide, and he has a bunch of people with him, and he's like, "Did you see the grizzly bear?" And we're like, we told him no, we didn't see it, and he goes, "Yeah, there was a grizzly bear just right in front of you, and on the trail." And so we're kind of on alert. And then as we go a little bit further, we passed. He's going past us. And as we go a little bit further, all of a sudden we see 3, like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and like a 12-year-old running. Mm-hmm. And kids, just maybe even younger than that.
We're 20 miles in?
Yeah. And then I was like,
middle of nowhere.
What? Where are you guys together? I mean, where are your parents? And they go, oh, they're just taking down camp. They just sent us on our own. Now, we just saw a guide, and he had just seen a grizzly, and their parents had sent these little ones on their own by themselves.
No whistle, no bear spray, no guns.
Nothing. And they're running.
Tater tots. Walking tater tots for a bit.
Yeah. Seasoned. Right. Seasoned perfectly. Yep. And so I said, hey, why don't you guys come with us and at least stay with our group so that that you'd be okay. Do you remember how much energy they had?
I wish I had half it.
They were running faster than we were going. And I kept saying,
was for quite some time.
Well, and I said, will you just stay with us? Okay. Because we're going pretty quick, and they actually stayed right with us. And then they would leave and they would go and and I was like, just stay. It was really bothering me. Yeah. And so
you get your dad instinct.
Yeah. And it was. And then I was having a hard time them staying in our little group as we were going. And then all of a sudden we heard a scream.
No, they weren't with us when the scream happened.
Oh.
They turned around and went back.
Oh, that's right.
We talked to them like, hey, maybe you should just go back and wait for your parents. Because they were kind of getting annoying. And they went back. And then we went another 2-3 miles.
And then all of a sudden we heard this scream. Mm-hmm. And it's midday. And if you can picture this, off to our right, there was this, we're at kind of mid-mountain. You could see down the mountain, and then up the valley was just this deep, dark dense forest. Yeah. And
half a mile away?
Yeah. But in this thick forest, and you could just tell it was dark, came this God scream of I don't know how to describe it. You
can't even describe it. I've tried to describe it to people, but it sounded like I can't even. It was like a scream, groan, yodel.
But it was more and that,
I mean, as loud as you can imagine, 100 decibels.
But what it was it wasn't a scream of help or anything. It was a warning.
Yeah.
It was a warning of you better not come in here.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
In the middle of this dark forest, it was not a bear. It was not a cougar.
And immediately we all became.
Well, the horses all turned their heads and looked and started doing the.
and we all got really quiet.
And we all looked at each other. Oh, look at this, I got goosebumps. We all looked at each other like, what the hell was that?
I mean, we've been in the mountains our whole life, never heard this before, and never heard it since.
No.
And so as
and then we go another quarter mile, and it does it again.
And at this point, that's when I turn around and the kids heard it, and they had run to us because they had heard that scream.
They were way ahead of us.
And so they was like, oh my gosh, what was it? And so they were like, okay, then they stuck with us. And then it was like, okay, we got to get the hell out of here. I just want to get the hell out of here.
We put on turbo. We got out of there. It was some freaking noise. Sasquatch is the only thing I could think of, or some mutant grizzly bear cougar hybrid thing.
Okay, but now the rest of this, at the end of our trip, we go back, we sit in front of our computer, we pull up YouTube, and we listen to Sasquatch. We listen to Bigfoot sounds. And we're like, there was 10 Bigfoot sounds. The first one, no. Second one, I mean, they weren't even close. It was the 10th one. Yeah. And we played the 10th one, and we went, oh my gosh, that's it. And all of us was like, oh my gosh. We went, okay, that's the sound we heard.
Yeah, that's the sound we heard.
So we can officially say we heard.
Sasquatch is out there.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
Living in the dark middle of nowhere, Bob Marshall wilderness, eating little kids that walk by. Enjoying life.
Well, we didn't let any of those little kids get eaten that day.
No, we didn't.
Which was, that was, we ended up seeing that same day. Do you remember you and I went down to the river. We're getting water in our filter bag.
Yeah.
And we're getting water. And I look up and I'm like, man, that is a big dog.
Yeah. And I go, what's the dog doing all the way back here? Ratty old skinny looking dog.
Brown,
ugly looking dog.
But it's big.
Yeah.
It was a wolf.
Yeah, it was a wolf. This shortly after wolf reinduction, we never even contemplated that wolves could be back in there. This is what, 2007?
Yeah, but it was a big wolf.
Big old skinny, hungry wolf. Looked like a dog. Looked at us and then ran off. I'm like, what's somebody's dog doing back here? No, it was a wolf.
And then that night,
that was an interesting night.
And we're sitting around the campfire. We all have just little Petzl lights. None of us had the thought of bringing a big fast light. We have never brought a really bright light since.
Well, we did after that.
But we all just had these little Petzl lights, and we're just talking around the fire, and and all of a sudden we'd seen grizzly tracks everywhere, and you could see that a grizzly had been eating some of the berries. And then we hear this sound.
It's like 10 o'clock at night.
And it's dark, dark, dark. And we all look up, and behind this bush, you could see two bright eyes and the makeout just of the head of a grizzly as it's looking.
And all you can really see is these eyes, and they're kind of doing this.
But they're wide, and they're kind of looking at us.
And they blink.
And it was like,
10 yards away.
Okay, and so if you can picture this, you now have 4 grown men
with guns in their hands,
all pulled up, ready to. I mean, it's like, okay, one more step, and this grizzly was going to be a very dead grizzly. Or
then the eyes would go away, and then they come back.
And they come back, and then Rich, he picks up a rock and he throws it at it. And I was
Get
like,
out of here, bear!
Yeah, and the bear took off. You could hear it running away.
You remember what I did?
Yes, I remember what you did. So as this happens, John pulls me in front of him and says, bear. Literally grabs me and pulls me. And I don't even think of it because I've got the rifle like this. And I'm just like ready for it. And he pulls me in front and he's like, there's a bear.
Well, I'm the slowest one there, so I need a little head start.
Well, yeah.
We put up electric fence that night. It came back. Got zapped.
We heard it get zapped.
I didn't hear it, but I think Steven, who was
did.
Definitely afraid of bears. When there's a bear around, my brother Steven is like wide-eyed, not sleeping that night.
So so the people don't understand, an electric fence, we do this routinely, especially in heavy bear country. We take an electric fence, we use it for the horses to be able to pasture. Yep. We did that in Yellowstone, so it didn't mess up any of the natural stuff. Anyways, what we do is we'll take the horses, put those, if we're really nervous about it, we'll put the horses close to us, kind of around the tent. Then we put an electric fence around all of it. Why does an electric fence work so well for a bear?
Because the bear's going to sniff it, and it's going to zap it right on the nose, and they're grounded with wet paws, and they will get the
super
shock of a
grounded.
lifetime. Oh, they're super grounded. It'll zap the snot out of them and they'll run away.
And so they check everything out with their nose.
Mhm.
So they're going to go up to the wire, and they always do, and they're going to sniff it with their nose. They're going to get, and we know that it gets zapped because Steven always, he's so funny. He literally will grab it and go, okay, it's working good. Because he's so afraid. He wants
He's
to
like,
make
"Oh,
sure.
yeah, that's spicy.
Or he'll go, yeah, it's not hitting me enough. Well, there's something wrong.
Something's grounding it."
And so, anyways, I heard it that night, and it sounded like a little bit like a pig that he'd got, because it made this, and then it ran off and
Didn't come back.
Well, John, this has been fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again. We've got
A lot of stories.
that much is what we've told you about the stories we have in the outdoors and life and stuff like that. So that was fun.
Hey,
I love reminiscing about this stuff.
thanks for being here, and yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah, I'll leave you with this. Hard things make you enjoy life better. And do hard things. They suck at the time, but you have these awesome memories.
Yeah, and life is really about the memories.
Mhm.
And we appreciate you watching us today. Have a great day. Thank
Thanks.
you.